It's the Bleav in Texans podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Joined today, and I'm really happy to have him, Bryant Browning, who hosts the Bleav in Buckeyes podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at @BR_Browning. He hosts that with Chidi Chekwa. And look, Bryant, you know this, I know this. Ohio State's becoming a pipeline to the Texans. And starting with CJ Stroud, Cade Stover. I'm going to forget somebody along the way here, but now with Kayden McDonald. And I guess just to start off with, I mean, Cade McDonald kind of burst onto the scene as a guy that could go high in the draft because he was buried behind a bunch of other really productive defensive tackles. What did you see from him this season? What did you think about him as a prospect, the whole shebang?
Yeah, I think K-Mac, first off, I would say the first thing I would say is he's really stepped up to the challenge. Like you stated, he played behind a lot of good guys and other first rounders and Tyreek Williams. He had some other guys in front of him as well at the nose tackle position and Ty Hamilton. And so this year was his first year. Actually, we was counting him like, hey, you're the starter. You're the every down guy. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot was like, is he going to be up for the challenge? Can he do it? And I think he really stepped up to the challenge. He knocked it out the park. He went from being a guy that we was known for like short yardage situations to just really being an every down guy, being a leader across that defensive front. And obviously the defense performed, and a lot of that was due to the work that K-Mac did in the middle.
Well, yeah, and I went back and I watched parts of one of your podcasts from the preseason last year before Ohio State season, and you paint out the environment there with the defensive tackles, where a bunch of transfers, and it didn't feel like Kayden McDonald was really at that point. You guys didn't really look at him as a guy that was necessarily going to be a major factor, and then I guess from my perspective, the thing that was impressive to me was just the flat-out production. I mean, the number of the 60-plus tackles, the tackles for a loss. But I guess the other side of it, when you project him into being an NFL big-bodied defensive tackle, is what's his ability to anchor down versus, you're an offensive lineman. What's his ability going to be to anchor down? Is there some work that he has to do on that front when it comes to playing that style of football in the NFL?
Yeah, to me, that's what he does natural.
Yeah.
So before, once again, he was the everyday starter. We used to put him in the game on like goal line and short yardage situations. And if you look back at our stats of the season we won the national championship, it was outstanding. Like, we have historic goal line stands throughout the year. And when you watched it, so when you watch it, somebody usually make the tackle, a linebacker, DN, safety slashing, and actually make the hit. But when you watch the film again, you're like, well, there's an offensive lineman going backwards.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a former offensive lineman. One thing you don't want to do in a short yard situation is go backwards. You want to go forward. And when you watch it again, it's always K-Mac. He used to line up over the center, and he just knocked the guy back a yard or two. And then once you kind of get that, you got to bubble. The running back got to try to move his feet a little bit. And then from there, someone else kind of come in and make the play. So that's what he was known for before he even became a starter. So, like I say, seeing him with the stats and the numbers and the tackles and things for loss, like, that was the surprise to us, because we knew if he could do one thing, was line up, be big, get off the line, and knock off the lineman back, which is just, it's not everyday stuff.
Right now, the Texans are plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl. Cowboys are plus 2,200, which is annoying me, but that's none of your concern, Bryant. I guess the other part of Kayden, and the part that was a little bit of a surprise to some people who follow the Texans, was, hey, in D'Amico's defense, it's an attacking front. They've got a lot of three technique style guys. And D'Amico talked about it. He was asked that question after the draft, and he said, look, there's times where we want to stop the run. And D'Amico didn't come right out and say it, but he left the sentence unfinished. But there were some times, like in those critical moments, where they couldn't. So there's a place in a front like that for a big 330-pound space eater. But the next logical question is, okay, look, I've seen him with some nice pass rush moves. You see him penetrating at times, especially when he's slanting. What do you think his upside is as a potential pass rusher?
Yeah, I think he could definitely get the job done. Once again, like I said, I kind of just go back to this year, because before that, we never seen it. We didn't know he could do it. But coming into this year, he had the challenge of being an every down guy. And you just saw his game evolve. And I think with some of his things, he is still a little bit, a little bit young, a little bit raw. at. So I think he definitely has the upside of going out there and continue to work on things and improve his game. And obviously with your defensive line, with your defensive ends alone, he gonna get some one-on-one opportunities. So if he can go out there and win, he could definitely, affect that quarterback a little bit.
Well, I saw you and Cheaty laughing about that after the Texans took Kayden McDonald, and you said that they love their defensive linemen down there in Houston. We know offensive linemen; it's a little bit dicier. They spent pretty heavily in the draft and free agency on offensive linemen. But you're 100% right that I think the Texans' defense is so good that if they hadn't addressed offensive line in free agency, and then if they hadn't drafted an offensive lineman in the first round, you would be looking at it and thinking like, the defense is doing all right. What are they? But yeah, that part of it's been it's been fun to watch this defense. And then what you see is defensive tackles tend to play up to their ceiling. The D-line coach Rod Wright does a really good job of coaching those guys up. The one thing I saw from Caden when you talk about his youth is sometimes it's, if it's just a classic double team or it's on a duo or something like that, I can see where he just fits right in. He's one of those guys that can almost get away with playing kind of high sometimes because of his strength. But there's those when there's more nuance to it and he's getting hit from the side, there's some times where you get knocked out of his gap. And because you guys are dirty with that, when you blindside guys a little bit.
You got to get that hip, Seth. You know about it. You're man. You got to get that hip. Yeah.
Oh, no, there is. It's because you got to. Is it for the viewers? There's this thing when you got to hold the A gap, but you also got a guard coming down on you. You got a Bryant Browning coming down on you, and you kind of forget that the center is was a split second later is going to hit you from the side and it knocks you out of your gap. But that's anticipation, and those are the things that happen. Was there anything about him that happened this year, like any stories or anything that maybe didn't make the scouting report, or some adversity that he or the defense faced at times that he had to overcome?
I'm going to say no. Let's start off with that, because I think where the real adversity came in with the sheer fact that we just had so many new starters coming off the national championship. I think we had 15 guys in total get drafted or something crazy like that. The entire 24 defense that starters all got drafted to the NFL. So, we just looking like a lot of new guys, trying to figure it out. And obviously we had Matt Patricia come in to Ohio State, defensive coordinator from the NFL. Did a lot of great work with the New England Patriots. So we just didn't really know exactly what this defense was going to look like. We just got a lot of new faces. We got a lot of guys that we think could do it, but we just haven't seen them do it. And then they kind of went out there, and right away, we got week one, we got Texas, right? We got Texas at home, but it's Texas, right? And you got Arch Manning coming in with preseason, everyone's number one draft pick, right? First guy off the board, he's the guy to do it. And we stifle him, right? And after the game,
you guys were so good for content. After that, there was so much content based on that game because of what you did to Arch Manning. Yeah,
and exactly. But then then they go to the media. It's like, well, offensively, and their coach, they score a lot of points. Offensively, we just didn't know what the defense. We didn't understand what they was giving us. We just couldn't quite figure it out. And our defense was playing fast. Everyone was where they're supposed to be. If someone did get beat, obviously we had Caleb Downs. He was like the ultimate eraser, right? He figured out where things was where we might be weak at and got there and covered it up. And just overall, I think that was the story. Just so many guys, so many new faces, guys starting who never started before, but it looks like they've been doing it for years. These guys just look like they is a unit. Everyone understands what their job is, and at the same time, they just play fast and free, which allowed a lot of guys to make a lot of plays, which obviously kind of equals a lot of success as a defense.
Yeah, I think that's one thing, when I was half joking about Ohio State becoming a pipeline for the Texans, Nick Caserio, the GM down here, talks a lot about the respect that they have for certain programs. And I think a big part of it is, with Ohio State is Ryan Day and that program. They obviously have a relationship with Matt Patricia, so they were able to get any of the details on Kaden McDonald. What is it? And with 5 guys gone in the first round, and how many did you say drafted overall this year? The
11 this year and 15 the prior season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it? Because Belichick had said that they were going to be the new pipeline to the NFL, like the 33rd team of the NFL. They're going to get guys ready. They didn't have anybody drafted out of UNC this year. So obviously, you guys start with a bunch of high-end talent to begin with, but it doesn't always translate into a lot of guys going into the NFL. You know, a lot of guys, a lot of teams that have 5-star recruits all over the place don't have nearly the number of draft picks that you guys do. What is it about Ryan Day's program that's just maybe different in that regard?
Yeah, I think it's the level of competition. You know, when like you say, you get a lot of 4 or 5-star guys coming in, especially in the NIL world, right? Guys kind of come in a little bit entitled, right? You didn't give me all this money if you plan to sit me on the bench. But I feel like Ohio State, they do a great job at really, the culture is really competitive where guys are feeling that pressure day in and day out. Coach Day talks about it, and he starts with his own quarterback room. Hey, I know we're going into camp, but I don't know who the quarterback is. Guys got to show me a little bit more before they kind of get that nod, and then they, kind of continue to battle out there. And I think they do that across the board. And so I feel like that brings the best out of guys. Right, you kind of keep working, you kind of keep plugging, you keep scratching at it until you kind of can get that to that level and get it done. And I think Coach Day also does a great job of just really keeping a great staff around. Right, I mean, obviously you got Hartline who leaves Ohio State to take a head job at USF, but all this great talent he brings into the wide receiver room. And so now you're getting torched in practice, right? So what you got to do in practice? Your cornerbacks are getting torched. They got all these. As a cornerback, you got to step it up. I gotta be able to kind of have put a cap on my hat and feel good about my day. And so you got a guy who's a former Buckeye, a former NFL guy who coaches the defensive backs, and those guys step up to the level. And then you lose offensive coordinator. You bring in a guy from the NFL who has some experience. You bring him in to develop the guy. Same thing defensively. You lose a guy, 1 or 2 defense in the nation. We bring in a Matt Patricia to make the defense even better and understanding exactly what it takes to get to that next level. So I just think the staff knows the ultimate goal of players to get to the NFL. So let's not play around on how to get there. You have to improve. You got to continue to grow, and that's through competitive and the whole program, the staff, gets you ready for that next level.
You guys, meanwhile, by the way, on FanDuel are 1.5-point underdogs to Texas in your opening game. So the disrespect is real, man. Use it. Fuel it.
Yeah, we can live with that.
CJ's mentioned Ryan Day a bunch of times, especially early on, his rookie year. Rookie year when everybody wanted to ask, what's the secret to your success? Things have changed a little bit. But he's talked about Ryan
Day. Back today. He got to get back to us today.
We don't want to get into the whole offensive coordinator thing. He cited Ryan Day as like a guy that really helped him with learning how to be a better leader, the body language, all of that. And I was just curious about your perspective watching CJ Stroud, who wasn't a highly recruited guy, came in, had to wait and bide his time. And then watching him in the NFL right now, kind of what's your experience been with watching that young kid to where he is right now, where he's still – I think he's got a lot more potential. I'm pretty optimistic about him, but he's got to work through a few things.
Yeah, so CJ is always kind of similar to K-Mac, right? He didn't come in as being the guy. Kind of had to sit down and learn a little bit before he actually, got to run the team. Now I got to throw this out here first. I'm from Cleveland. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I grew up a Cleveland Browns fan. I watch the Browns week in and week out. When they're good, I watch them. When they're bad, they're watching. But I told my good friends, like, hey, now that the Texans got CJ Stroud, like while we're trying to figure out things as a Brown, I'm gonna kind of take my cheering down to the Texans for
we got a weird dynamic, man, between Cleveland and Houston, between Deshaun and CJ and the draft and everything.
But CJ is just a guy to me. I just feel like, like you say, he got some things to work on, but he will figure it out. And I just think that, with his work ethic, the way he kind of locks in and hone in and try to block out all distractions and just really focus in on the minor things that it takes to be that quarterback, that team leader that you guys obviously need. He will continue to do that, right? So obviously you guys have had some success, right? You guys are getting to the playoffs now for the 2-3 years in a row. But as you say, CJ kind of trajectory kind of started to appear and then kind of filled out, and now it's just like, well, if he play a little bit better, maybe we can actually win something, win one, right? Win a big one or something of the sort. So I just think, CJ is just a guy that has a very special ability to pick the ball where you think it should go, right? If you're looking at a tight window, he has a great job of actually getting it in that window. But now to me, it's just like everything else, right? You got to process fast. you got to, you got to keep your feet clean. You got to maybe, cut down on turnovers and things of that nature, cut down on sacks. But as the game kind of goes on, I think he would continue to figure out what he needs to do to be better, and in turn, help with the team and continue to make the team go in the right direction.
I didn't want to just assume that you're a Browns fan, but now that you've confessed it, I gotta. All right, okay. Who's starting week 1, Deshaun or Shedeur? And who should start week 1? I don't mean to leave Dylan Gabriel out, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but we know where it's at, right? No, I'll be honest. I think Watson will start week 1. I think Shedeur should be the starter week 1. I feel like that. I feel like our owner, who always said he don't want to meddle, but he always continues to meddle, wants to see, that final stamp on, did we get it right with the quarterback when we signed Deshaun? Obviously, the last, 4 season, no, right?
Yeah.
But I think that, so when we hired Monken, right, and I was like, man, this kind of came out of nowhere. So I'm watching it, and we talk about who the guys were bringing in. You got guys talking about they're not interviewing for the Browns job. They don't want it. All this talk. It's like, well, it'll probably be some young up-and-coming guy. And then, boom, kind of out of nowhere, we hire Monken. I'm like, why would we hire a guy Monken? And I thought about it for a second. I was like, well, who was Monken just coaching?
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And so now our owner's probably thinking like, well, he could probably get Watson to be like a Lamar Jackson. He was just doing it. So, let's bring him in. And he'll get Watson to play like Lamar Jackson. And then I could feel good about my guaranteed $200 million contract.
I think I've always liked Monken a lot, and I think if you want to take a guy that's been in the college world, been in the NFL world, and I know he's gold for you guys up there with his interviews are hilarious. He's just the old guy that doesn't give a damn, right? Mm-hmm. But I wonder if just that ability to kind of, if at some point when Shedeur is gonna start again at some point this year, that you can mix both of what he's comfortable with and how far you can bring him along. But I also think that, man, Cleveland, I know a lot of Browns fans don't want to hear this, but Andrew Berry has done a really good job, except for that big, huge gaping contract issue that they have with Deshaun, that it might be better if Shedeur doesn't play until halfway there. You don't want to be too high in the draft. Like, I don't know. They're set up pretty well. Right now, the Browns on FanDuel are plus 20,000 to win the Super Bowl, which is above the Cardinals, the Jets, and the Dolphins.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right for this year for us, man. But I don't know, because like I said, I like Berry as well. And I would say this, and once again, I have no information. I got no inside information. Put it like this: the whole Watson thing, I just feel like that was the owner coming down and said, "I want to do this thing, make it happen."
Yeah, it was
make it happen.
It was like drafting Manziel.
And so he did. He made it happen, and we all had to watch it blow up in our face. But I'm cheerful. Hopefully Watson, he's married now. He's probably a different man. Hopefully, shook some things off, got a different path, and he can go out there and perform. Hey,
it's such a long and complex path. Bleav in Buckeyes podcast. We're supposed to be talking about Ohio State and the Texans. The one guy that I think is a big year for him here. The one Buckeye on the Texans is Cade Stover. And, you saw him transition from being a linebacker to a tight end. I still think he's got a lot of upside. He was injured this year, but he's in a really competitive situation. The Texans have a boatload of guys that are going to be fighting for tight end spots. What did you see from Cade Stover when he made that switch from linebacker to tight end a few years ago?
Yeah, so, Cade is just, for one, he's just like a classic tough guy, right? I mean, so, he's from like a farmer background. So, he works with his hands, great core strength, willing to do whatever it takes for the team to win that play, not even that game. Like whatever we need to do to be successful this play, he'll figure out how to get the job done. He was always timely with his catches and his playmaking abilities down the field as a receiver coming from the tight end position. So I just feel like, he has to find that niche for you guys, right? Like you say, I looked at the your guys' depth chart before we get on. I was like, man, it's a lot of still got Schultz there. You got some guys coming in and off the street and free agent. So it's a lot of guys there. But for Cade, I just feel like he has a connection with CJ. Lean on that, man. You know how CJ wants the ball. You know what CJ might be at, where the ball might need to be when he's in trouble. Get to that spot and make yourself available and make yourself a friendly receiver for CJ. Make some plays in that fashion. And then also just continue to grow the game, continue to grow. Obviously, when you're a tight end in the NFL level, you have to be able to block on the line of scrimmage. Line up, put your hand on the ground, and make something happen for the run game, especially with you guys, with David Montgomery being there now, right? Better guy getting some things done. So, lean into it. Like if you got what you need to do, figure out how to be a little bit better at it so the coaches are comfortable and putting you in that position. Because I feel like that's something that he does a lot of other things well. Motion blocking, pulling blocking, things of that nature. I feel like if it's something he could work on, put his hand on the ground and actually get the job done. And I think that will help separate him in that tight position group, in that tight end position room to, maybe sell itself to the top.
Yeah, and I think that's where, he's out of that window where you can't any longer say, well, he's new to the position. But the Texans I think they're wholeheartedly getting into this 13 personnel trend where you got 3 tight ends on the field and they want to have guys that can actually block. And I think of those guys, they had brought in Foster Moreau from the Saints. And I think that Cade's the guy that would project to, I think if he can continue to refine his technique, be a competent blocking tight end in the NFL. And I think they want as many of those guys as possible. The offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, was a tight ends coach. So, that's kind of his world. And I think that's what he thinks of Cade Stover. I wanted to ask you, because I know your rookie year in 2011 with the Panthers, I Bleav that was your rookie year.
Yep,
it was also Cam
right.
Newton's rookie year.
Yep.
And what was that like? What was just going through? Because I feel like people always want to act like it was just, that it was unfair, the criticism Cam got. But Cam is the first one to say, yeah, I had to mature in some respects and I had to grow up. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny. So I at Ohio State, I played with Terrell Pryor. So I don't know if you know Terrell Pryor, but he was an all-world athlete, great quarterback, basically a 4-year starter at Ohio State. But he was different, right? He kind of the media kind of flocked to him as an offensive lineman. All questions kind of went towards what Terrell Pryor doing, what's going on with his thoughts. And then when I go to the Panthers, kind of like a similar situation, right? When Cam Newton jumped on the scene, that year at Auburn, which used to look like, man, this looked like Terrell Pryor, but bigger, man. Like, who is this guy, right? And obviously they go on and then win the national championship, and he's number 1 pick overall. So with his rookie year at the Panthers, it was always funny to watch because we was not a good team, but it's the NFL, so it's not like if you're not a good team, it doesn't mean you don't got the guys. You still got some great guys around there. You're close to being a better team, but you're not winning right now. And I feel like he wore a lot of that on his sleeve. Like, hey, we're losing. This is on me. We need to be better. I need to be better. We, so we can kind of take the steps forward as a team, as an org, to kind of, get things going the right direction. Coaching wise, I feel like we didn't do him a lot. We didn't help him out a lot. We had essentially 2 corner store running backs at the time on the roster, and we just threw the ball just way too much. Basically, every game, if you remember, Cam Newton had a lot of records as a rookie, passing games, total yards. He had a ton of stats. But basically every game he would throw us in the game to win it, and then he would throw us out the game to lose it. And it was just like, to me, it was just really unfair to put him in that position as a rookie. Like, we got these running backs, let's run the ball a little bit more, let's do a little bit more with that. But that was the offensive coordinator's goal at the time. We wing it, we throw it, and that's just kind of how
it was Chudzinski, right? That was Chudzinski. So you can't, man, you can't. That's the problem, is you can't escape some of the. As a Browns fan, it's like I feel like that's extra painful for you because
yes,
the people keep coming back to haunting you. I'm pulling for the Browns until I feel so bad because I grew up with Browns fans. I grew up in upstate New York, and I had a couple of good friends that were Browns fans. So like, I feel your pain, and I'm pulling for the Browns until you get to a point where I have to hate you again. But that's you guys don't deserve the misery that you've had over these years.
Well, thank you, Seth. I appreciate
Buckeyes,
that, man.
Buckeyes, you're good enough that I hate you.
Yeah. We take that.
So, Bryant Browning from the Bleav in Buckeyes podcast. Subscribe to his show or this one on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please rate us 5 stars and write a review. It goes a long way to help other fans discover the show. Really appreciate it, Brian. I hope to be joining you again at some point after Cade McDonald all of a sudden becomes like a 15 sack a year guy or something out of nowhere.
Yeah, that all pro. No, Seth, thanks for having me on. It's been great, but fun. Love talking Texans.
All right, man.
My team in the South.